Hello, this is a video about Monster Hunter. If you've seen the hype, you see people are playing it, everybody's enjoying it. It sold 8 million copies over 3 days, which is a lot. And you're wondering if it's the right game for you, this is the video for that. So I would consider a Monster Hunter like a core gamer game. And by core gamer means there are some assumptions about what your skill levels are. If you have problems with moving your stick and moving your camera at the same time, like if that's already a struggle, it might not be for you. But if you or someone you're trying to get this for is someone who's like into the more difficult games, like an Elden Ring, a Dark Souls, and Neo, those kind of things, where they're in the know, they've been doing this for a while, they're kind of a really core game. This is more in line for those people. There are a really large amount of modern games that try to convenience things out of the game for the sake of what they call quality of life. But to me, sometimes, and to other core gamers, it can feel like you're taking away a vector of gameplay. So, for an example, the main loop of this game is that you're fighting big boss monsters that are roaming a world. And you usually have a specific mission or target to do each one at a time. And the story kind of takes you through each monster, giving you an excuse to kind of meet each of them. And even the story itself is kind of like just the start. And I've just gotten past the story, and I would consider that just the start now that I've seen what the rest of the game looks like from here on out. But you pick up one of a wide variety of weapons that all play in their own special way. So, depending on what naturally works in your brain, there's probably a weapon for you, whether it's a fast weapon, a slow weapon, a complicated technical weapon, a range weapon. There's a lot of variety in that gameplay alone. And then the loop is just to go hunt these monsters. And when you're hunting these monsters, there's no health bar indicator as to what's going on with them. That's one of those like more hardcore core gamer things. It's that you have to pay attention to what the monster is doing, what's on the monster, if they're running away, if they're limping, if there's like scars and marks on them. That's kind of how you tell how well you're doing. And at best, you get the damage numbers that you're doing as a player yourself just to see if you're hitting things efficiently. But some people don't like that there's no health bar, but that is a core principle of figuring out how far the boss is dead or not. Also, all the weapons have a really big learning curve and aren't very easy to pick up and play. A lot of modern games now have really pick up and play kind of gameplay and combat where you kind of get the gist of it pretty quickly. You kind of know all the mechanics that you have access to, and then you're kind of set to roam a power fantasy right away. Monster Hunter Wilds is not like that. It's very deliberate in the actions. There's a lot of forethought and thinking and committing to actions that you want to do, which is why it's so important that there's a variety of choices of weapons because each one has their own pros and cons for how much you want to commit, how mobile you are, how safe you can be at a time, whether something's very beginner friendly or not beginner friendly. There's a lot of mechanical depth and there's a lot of things that you can do to the monster in this game. So it's kind of one of those games where if you're open to looking up mechanics, if you're open to looking up guides on how to use weapons, if the idea of that sounds good, and if the idea of mastering a skill that's new to you sounds exciting to you, then Monster Hunter might be for you. If that sounds frustrating and something that you're not into, that could be something that is a hindrance to your enjoyment. You have to learn what the monsters do, you have to learn what you do, and each monster is different in ways that they can attack you. And you really have to figure out all the little nuance of how to maneuver your weapon and your character at the same time. And that could be really frustrating for people that aren't really used to moving a character efficiently in other simpler games yet. Or it could be a huge challenge that you see as something that's really fun and you go and do that. Also, the controls are really different. The controls are a bit weird and unwieldy, especially if you're coming from other simpler games. There's a lot of things you have to consider here. And the way that stuff is mapped in the controller is a little bit unnatural. And the ways that you press buttons together is really could be considered really, really unwieldy and like convoluted to a lot of people. But that complexity is the same reason why people like me really enjoy it because it's something that's not common. It's a new way to play a game. It's different, it's unique, and this is the best version of that so far. And if you're on the fence and you are kind of one of those more core gamers, this is the best entry point to get into. In terms of gameplay, I think this probably has the most fluid, the most responsive, the most varied, the most forgiving, the best feeling gameplay out of any Monster Hunter game. I've never beat any previous Monster Hunter. I've only dabbled a bit because the hype was slowly building towards Wild. It's that each entry that came in got a little more popular and they really stuck to their roots of what they were. They didn't change to make it simpler to gather an audience. They just kept honing in the core experience that they were working on, which then now attracts people by turning the dials just enough to the point that new people find a really good entry point into the series. So if you're someone who's on the fence in that way, this is a great game to get into the Monster Hunter series with. If you're in it for the story, this probably isn't it. I personally didn't like the story, and I think a lot of people in the community also have been finding it just okay. Actually, people are a lot less nicer than that. So if you're in it looking for a really strong narrative experience, it's not really about that. I think the game kind of uses a story to take you beat to beat to introduce you to each monster in their first easiest form before that ends and you blow it up into this whole hunting loop, the end game that what a lot of people are aiming to play. It's a story. It exists. Probably not the greatest story, but there's something there. Think Saturday morning cartoon kind of complexity and nothing really profound and deep. The graphics are also just okay. I think on PC there's a lot of performance issues right now. I'm playing on console and I think it's just fine. I'm not picky about the art style too. I think it's good enough. I think the star of the show here is the gameplay that just feels really exciting and fun to get into. I had a friend describe it as it's got a lot of similar notes to a fighting game where each action is really deliberate and it's about action and reaction for you and the monster. It's just that you're not fighting other players. And ultimately, when you get really good at the game, it's a game about expression. When everything in the game finally clicks for you as a player and you know your weapon very well and you know the bosses very well and you're doing those harder hunts, that's where a lot of skill expression comes out of it. It feels like a dance with you and a giant scary monster as you hammer away, shoot your bow away, slash away, slice away at this massive behemoth in front of you with your friends. And the key part is with your friends. It's very easy to get other strangers or friends to help you in this game, and it's kind of encouraged. And I think that's what captures a lot of the audience is that it's something that I get to play with my friends too. A lot like Helldivers 2. There's a whole system for it that makes this all really simple. So if you're kind of someone who thinks you're on a lower skill level, almost every hunt you can decide to shoot a flare SOS out and random people will come help you. Sometimes they're AI, which I think they added this game. Sometimes there's support AI characters when there's no one joining, and other times it'll be real players coming in just to help you too. And yeah, so with all that being said together, do you think Monster Hunter Wilds is for you? I'll let you decide. But I thought something like this is helpful because when I look at reviews, it seems like they're trying to be really objective as to what the game is and what is fun or not. But I think there's a plethora of people and different skill types and personalities that are just looking at this hype from the outside in and being like, I don't even know if I'm going to be into this or not. So I hope in any way that this was helpful. And if you enjoyed it, what to do. Any subscriptions help as a small time creator. I would really appreciate it. Otherwise, I think that's all I have for today. Peace.